If you are not
Mm-hmm.
engaging
Yeah.
and you are not supporting other creators, offering your point of view, offering some valuable tips, whatever, i.e., commenting and engaging, you cannot and you will not grow your account.
Nat, of all the social media platforms, why are so many businesses starting to pay really close attention to LinkedIn?
Well, there's a few reasons, but if I were to say it in one sentence, I would say it is by far the best social media platform for professionals, business
Mm-hmm.
professionals, executives. Now, I know that sounds weird because many people listening might just assume that LinkedIn is still a place where you look for jobs,
Yeah.
where you might be networking with other professionals. And P.S., it is.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people still don't recognize that back in, I think it was 2016, they launched their creator program. And that
Mm-hmm.
basically transformed the entire platform into a social media platform. So whether you like it or not, that's the way it is. But what was interesting about that time is that it was very similar to early goings of like a TikTok or a Facebook where reach was incredibly high. So you have that social media model where they were providing tons of reach to every creator that was creating content. So people were getting tons of views, tons of likes, tons of this, followers, all that kind of stuff. And they just built up these amazing audiences and realized that on the back end of those profiles, those brands, they could then build businesses. Fast forward to today, 8, 9 years later, you're seeing the same thing, but businesses are now seeing the light. They're
Mm-hmm.
realizing that, whoa, I can actually get attention organically about my business and build relationships with other businesses. So, what I've been pushing and been saying for years now is that imagine you have a business and you've got 100 employees, right? Instead of being scared that they're going to be building their personal brands and leaving your company, encourage them to build their personal brands and be advocates for your company. And I think that businesses are starting to see that. They now have armies of people that have the ability to grow their brand and get a ton of reach and be
Mm-hmm.
representatives of their organization. And that's phenomenally powerful right now. Not to mention the entire ad ecosystem is also building on LinkedIn. That's an entirely different subject altogether. But from an organic perspective, if you're putting it in an hour, 2 hours a day, you can really build something special on the platform. So um, part of my whole job is heightening that awareness as well because that's precisely what I do is help people do that on the platform. So yeah, it's a pretty exciting time.
I had a conversation with a colleague slash friend of mine. This was about maybe 2 years ago, and he was heavy on LinkedIn, and I wasn't at all. And I said, well, why don't you just do Facebook targeting ads? Because you can target the business owners, and I was big on Facebook. And he didn't want to do it, and I finally switched to LinkedIn, maybe, I don't know, a year and a half ago or something like that. And I tell you, it was a game changer for my business. And every time I go back to Facebook, I tell you, Nat, man, when I log in, it's usually the first post on Facebook that just drowns my attention, and it's usually negative. I'm nothing against Facebook, but I get caught up in it, and it could be 5 or 6 minutes later, and I'm like, yeah, this is why I switched to LinkedIn. I can't do this anymore. And nowadays, I just the podcast lives on LinkedIn, and I'll post it on Facebook. And it doesn't really do good on Facebook; it's a different audience altogether. But I think eventually, it's going to live exclusively on LinkedIn because when I made that change, I'm telling you, it's like a light was turned on, and I can't look at social media the same way again for business.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm with you as far as this isn't poo pooing on Facebook in any way, shape, or form, right? They
No.
developed their social media game plan very similar to how others, and LinkedIn is doing the same. Look, eventually it's going to be harder on a LinkedIn to get organic traffic. It is.
Mhm.
That is the social media model.
Yeah.
You give out the reach, you're then growing your user base, and eventually you taketh away and you start making them pay for that reach.
Yeah.
What's nice is I don't think LinkedIn is just dropping the hammer right off the bat. They're doing this gradually. They're working out their ad ecosystem. Hopefully ads will become a little bit cheaper, which they already are offering those opportunities. You can boost posts now for considerably less than you would doing a regular advertisement. Facebook is still an incredibly viable and effective tool for ads, but for organic, it's really, really tough. And when I say tough, I mean, I don't know how the hell to do it myself. Like I wouldn't know how to grow from zero on a Facebook to, let's say, 5,000, 10,000 followers in a year or so. Targeted followers, mind you. It's a lot more spray and pray on a place like a Facebook. So what I always stress to people is it's not even about having 500,000 followers and this humongous audience. It's about acutely targeting your specific niche. And when you can do that, you don't need 50,000 followers. You can have 1,000 great ones and have an entire business.
Yeah. I have a fan page or whatever it's called on Facebook, and I have a personal profile. And I made the switch maybe about 6 months ago. I stopped posting on my page, my Facebook page, because the reach was horrible. But on my personal, and I had 12,000 followers, and on my personal profile, the reach was pretty good. And I always assumed they just wanted me to spend money on the page itself. But I didn't have anything to advertise, and I didn't really care about Facebook at the time, growing it there. I wanted to switch to LinkedIn. But yeah, that's what I assumed they wanted. Like you just said, they want you to pay more, or they want you to start paying ads on that particular page. Another question, I don't know if you know the answer to this, but do you think you will ever be allowed to boost, and maybe you can now, maybe I don't know this, to boost a post on your LinkedIn from your personal profile? You can't do that now, can you?
No, you can. You
Oh, you
can, but
can.
it's in beta. It's in beta. So
Oh, wow.
it's very, very new.
Interesting.
I don't even have access to it myself yet, but my business partner does, which is cool. So
Wow.
that's what I was referring to before, in the
Okay.
sense that ads. So when you do advertising from your business page, they have a minimum, I believe it's $30 a day ad spend, which can be steep for some people, right? And I totally understand that. I think boosting you can do for as little as $10 a day.
Wow.
So that's pretty nice. And you can basically just, you're just gaining impressions, but you can also target. It's very early stages. I've seen what it looks like on the back end. One of the nice things about Facebook advertising is your ability to target and retarget, and you can get very granular. With LinkedIn, like I said, it's still early days with their targeting capabilities and what they're offering specifically on the boosted post piece. If you're just advertising your business page and want to do specific ads, it's a reasonably robust platform for that, and you can definitely do some cool stuff. But I think boosting posts from personal is just the beginning. The thing to look out for, and I've heard slight rumblings about this, is that, and I know this can happen on a Facebook. You got to be careful with it, because sometimes if you're pushing your own personal page, I don't have any proof of this, but there's the possibility that it can cannibalize your organic reach, which is a little crazy. But
Yeah.
again, it's not like it's people doing that. It's the algorithm. So
Right.
I found this with Facebook. I remember, like, I had pages with 400,000 fans. I've run a bunch of websites, and I've been doing that since 2007. And with that amount of fans, we used to get 10,000 visits to our website. It was nuts. Like one post, boom. Now it's like 50, like literally 50
Wow.
visits from a 400,000 fan page.
Wild.
And I have some folks working on trying to like resurrect that, but I'm not exactly confident it's going to happen. But one of the fickle things about Facebook was like, people would believe this just mentally in their head. Like, if I'm just spending $5 a day on fans, they'll throw me a bone once in a while and like make a post go viral. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, as long as you're spending money and the algorithm kind of knows it, it'll like throw you a bone. And all of a sudden, once in a while, you'll get this post that goes viral. Now, that's hard to prove, right? I can't prove it, but part of me believes it. So whether or not that's true for LinkedIn's algorithm, I don't know. So I've been telling people to sort of dip their toes in very lightly if they have the ability to boost those posts from their personal. There's also another thing you can do to harness your business account to boost your personal posts. People don't realize that you can do that. There's a name for it. I think it's called like creator ads or something. So what you can basically do is it was the workaround until what they have now. And I've done this before. You can take your business page and load it up with your personal posts and have it be sponsored by your page. So it basically looks like an ad, but it's your personal post.
I see.
And there are some creators who do that extremely well. But now I guess you don't really have to anymore because they're rolling this out. But then again, it is in beta, so if it doesn't work, they're just going to scrap it. So who knows?
There's a science to creating a very attractive LinkedIn profile, isn't there?
I would say a science and, for lack of a better word, probably an art as well, right? The science is just in terms of, let's look at the textbook ABCD, right? Like, how are we actually going to format this thing? So in the simplest terms, I just said in the simplest terms, and I'm wearing a Breakfast Club shirt, but in the simplest terms, the most important part of a LinkedIn profile is your banner. People don't know this, but on average, a banner is looked at between 7 and 8 seconds, which on the internet is an eternity.
Yeah.
So if on your banner you're not telling people who you are, what you do, how you help them, something of that nature, you're not taking advantage of the most important part of real estate. So it really works in that order. You got your banner up top. Right below the banner, you've got your profile picture, which you kind of want to be somewhat professional if possible. Just, your face, maybe your neck, shoulder area with like a solid background. But then below that, you got your tagline, right? A tagline's a big deal.
Yeah.
A tagline is something that's going to draw people in. So I usually tell people you can do one of two things with a tagline. You can have something that's very polarizing. I used to have, my tagline used to say, the business coach who actually runs a business, right? So that was an actual polarizing tagline, but it didn't really say, what I did. And so I encourage people who are really trying to build businesses and sell, you probably want to have something a little bit more formidable in terms of what you do, who you help, something very along the same lines of what I would suggest for a banner. But like right now, mine says, don't just build your brand, build your business, right? So it's pretty obvious what I do. I do something in branding, something in business building. And you can go way more granular and specific than that. And then below that, you've got your call to action. And some people use what's called a button where it says like, view my website. I actually don't use that because I think, unfortunately, that blends in a little too much with other buttons.
Yeah.
All they have to do is let it be red, but they'll never do that.
I don't use it either.
Yeah, they'll
for
never
that
do that.
exact reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like Google Ads, like blending into a page.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tricking the reader. So instead, I just use a custom link, which I assume that's what you do as well, right? And there you can put like an emoji and all that kind of stuff. The character count's a little bit low. It's only 40, which kind of sucks. But, that's where you have a chance to really do something that's kind of actionable, like either set an appointment with me. That's kind of obvious and transparent. But, something like learn my system here or, that kind of stuff where you're encouraging the user to click on something, whether it's your website or your Calendly. And then below that, you've got your About section. That's really important. I look at that as like the ultimate LinkedIn post where you really want to have a strong hook, get the reader involved, but really also talk about yourself first and foremost. Who are you? Why should people be listening to you? Maybe tell your story. And then below that, you can talk about what you do in a little bit more detail, how to contact you. And then there's also something called the featured section. People also use the services section. Personally, I would use one or the other. I happen to be a fan of the featured section because it allows you to put an interesting thumbnail and a description. And all I tell people for the featured section is that it's basically the exact same thing as your CTA up top. It's just you have the ability to have a graphic and a little bit more descriptive text.
Okay.
And those are the main things. I mean, of course, you put your experience in there and all that kind of stuff, but Those are the big five, we call it. And if you nail those five, then you have what I call your palette, and you have a really good, for lack of a better word, it's not even lack of a better word. You've got a great landing page.
Yeah.
People don't realize that most people out there who have businesses, their personal LinkedIn pages are getting far more traffic than their websites. It's not even close. And so until that flip-flops, you might as well work on your LinkedIn page.
Of all the different strategies one can try on LinkedIn to grow, if you had to come up with the most important one, what would it be?
Well, there are two, okay? But for the purposes of this question, I'm going to say first and foremost, I'm going to say commenting.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Huge.
I will explain why there are two. First of all, great content, period, right? You have to have great content and you've got to post consistently. But the issue is on a LinkedIn platform, and P.S., this isn't just LinkedIn, this is every other social media platform. If you are not engaging
Yeah.
and you are not supporting other creators, offering your point of view, offering some valuable tips, whatever, i.e. commenting and engaging, you cannot and you will not grow your account. And so that's why, and the reason I say commenting is slightly more important than content is because there are people on LinkedIn who don't post any content, and all they are doing is engaging with other people.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about commenting on other posts. I'm talking about just literally connecting with people and sending out direct messages. And I've said this many times. I'll say it again. For anyone who's listening who's of a certain age that's probably close to mine or older, I look at LinkedIn as like the ultimate virtual Rolodex, right?
Oh,
It's a perfect opportunity to grow a network regardless of algorithms, regardless of attention, regardless of reach. If you just want to get out there and network with people, it's a hell of a lot easier than cold calling.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I literally wrote a PDF. It's 18 pages long, literally with the title, Commenting is the New Cold Calling. And I truly believe that. And without engaging, I mean, when I really went all in on LinkedIn, this was 2023. And at that time, I had about 25,000 followers. So it's a lot less than I have now. I went ballistic on the platform. You know, I was commenting 4 to 6 hours a day, which I don't recommend for other people. I just want to say, like, this is what I do full time. So it's not, it's not
Yeah.
necessary. But man, you want to build up a network, just talk to people all day. It's no different than cold calling. It's a hell of a lot easier too. You're not getting people slamming the phone in your face and like being rude to you. You might have a couple of those, but like, man, I don't take that personally, like at all. It's just like, we're on screens here. Like the ultimate funnel, in my opinion, is I love it when someone maybe views my profile or they comment on one of my articles or something. And that's just, to me, such a warm signal. And that's how you start a conversation. Like, very simply, hey, thanks for commenting on my stuff. Appreciate it. Stay in touch. By the way, I post here every day. I write that to everybody. And then I let my content do the talking, because algorithmically what happens is that conversation actually signals to LinkedIn that we're talking, and there's more of a chance that they're going to see me in their feeds. It's not a sure bet. A surer bet is if we actually connect, right? And we become first connections. But if you're commenting on people's posts a couple of times, they're commenting on yours a couple of times, there's a very good chance that all of a sudden now you're going to be in their feed every single day. And that's how the relationships really start. So you cannot, like, we have clients that we work with where they'll tell us, like, I don't have time to do that. I'll say, okay, well, it's not going to work. You better find someone to either do it for you or learn to do it for yourself for a little while, because you cannot grow on this platform without that. So, yeah.
I started taking that to heart maybe about 5 or 6 months ago, commenting on certain people's profiles and their posts. And I tell you, I went from, 2,500 connections, and I'm almost at 10,000 there now. And I have about 10 or so people that I comment on their posts every single day, and I don't miss them. And one thing I started to notice, there's a select group of people started posting on my content, and they don't miss. Every time I do a podcast, every single day, every weekday, And there's a group of people that will not miss commenting on it every single day. And I have another question for you. When people, let's say you're really trying to grow your LinkedIn channel, when people send you connection requests, if you're getting 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 a day, whatever it is it smart to accept every single one of them as a connection or allow them just to be a follower? Does that change the algorithm somehow if they send you a request, you don't accept it, but obviously you allow them to follow you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know if it changes the algorithm, but what I do know is you have to understand why you're there, right? So if you're on LinkedIn to specifically grow a business, then I would highly recommend that you do not accept every single connection request. If you are solely on LinkedIn to grow your profile and all you care about is likes and comments and impressions, then sure, accept every connection request. I did that in the very beginning, way back in 2019, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't do that. These days, I don't even send connection requests, and I'm very selective on who I actually accept. And what I tell people is your best strategy really is this. There's two kinds of people that I always want to have as connections on the platform. Those that are just really good users on the platform. So those who produce good content, maybe they have strong followings, they're very active, just people that you know who can algorithmically help your account.
Right.
And the other is your ICP, folks that are your ideal client profile in your industry, people who you know that maybe you'll have as a client or they can connect you to someone who might be a client. And usually when I tell people how their own outreach should go, I usually say 70-30. You want to be reaching out and connecting with probably 70% of those people should be your ICP, and the other 30 should be more like, quote unquote, clout generating people, right? Who can really help you sort of grow your accounts. So outside of that, I don't think about your own life. Who do you want in your life, right? You don't want every single person in the world in your life. You want a select few, your inner circle, so to speak. Just on LinkedIn, it can be a little bit more broad and larger than that.